Hello, welcome to the Divine MF podcast. I'm Richard.
And I'm Nancy.
All right, so today we're sharing about our move from Virginia to
Florida.
Okay, where do we begin? Well, spoiler alert, we made it.
Yes. Yes. So I think probably the best place to start is at the beginning where the decision was made to come to Florida.
Yes. Okay, so in that sense, it's my fault that we moved.
Yes.
So it was the summer, May, June, and I was offered a teaching position at a university that would have been commutable to where we were living in Virginia.
Uh-huh.
And so that was going to be my plan for September was, okay, I can commute to this school and teach these couple of classes, and that will be that.
Mm-hmm.
And then I, through a contact in my network, got this invitation to interview for a teaching position down in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, I really don't see the point in doing this. We're feeling really good in Virginia, and I just got a position that I'm set. I didn't get a contract yet, but that was in process. And so there was no need to interview somewhere in Florida.
Mm-hmm.
And for some reason, I thought, okay, sure, I will do an interview. And it was an online interview. And so I thought, okay, I'll meet with the faculty and see how that goes.
Mm-hmm.
And so I had the initial interview, and it just really clicked. The person who interviewed me, I thought was really fantastic, and I could see myself working there, and it just felt like a fuck yes.
Mm-hmm.
It felt very exciting. I would have, I think, one more class, and the salary was just way more competitive than the initial one that I accepted.
Mm-hmm.
And so I thought, okay, this would be moving, but I would increase my income significantly.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so I was invited to have a second interview within the next week or so.
Yes.
And so at that point I spoke to you, and I thought, okay, so
Mm-hmm.
here's the deal. We can totally stay here and do this. No problem. This opportunity feels very exciting, though, and the increase in our income was significant.
Mm-hmm.
It was a nice chunk up. And so, yeah. And how did you see that or remember that initial conversation?
Yeah, it was very clear to me that I could feel your fuck yes.
Mm-hmm.
I could feel that you were following your intuition, and I knew that I had to trust your intuition because I wasn't there in the interview. I didn't necessarily, have an idea as to what all of this would entail.
Mm-hmm.
So I just had to pretty much surrender and in faith be there with you. And I knew in the back of my mind that I had my medical license was, even though I had just let it lapse, it was very easily reinstituted for Florida. So I knew that regardless, everything would work out.
Right. Yes, that is something to note, that I recall feeling the sense of tightroping without a safety net. I felt very confident in this scenario.
Mm-hmm.
However, it was, I think, the first time that I presented something that would be a shift in course for us.
Mm-hmm.
So this was probably the biggest yanging moment I've had in our relationship.
Yes.
Up until that point.
Yes.
Hey, honey, let's move.
Yes. And we had been together at that point 5-6 months.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And so, yes, to uproot was a consideration to be made. However, vibrationally speaking, it was very obvious to me that this was the choice to move.
Mm-hmm.
Not only for the the bullet points about the position A versus position B, the school that's local to us in Virginia versus the school here in Florida. But just that what our life was. We were in a nice, comfortable space, and I could feel us moving along our journey. This sort of uproot and move, though, felt like an acceleration, not only for the surface level reasons, but vibrationally for us as a couple. It felt
Yes.
like it would accelerate us.
Oh, yes. And I agree. I think it did. Looking back, hindsight's 2020.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
Right. So I knew. So even though it was this feeling of tightrope walking without a safety net, I was quite sure that this would be the best
Mm-hmm.
for us. And so I then had the second interview,
Mm-hmm.
and it went well. And I sort of. So I did have this sort of experience with negotiating a little bit. I remember I thought, okay, so now I have the second offer. Is it possible to sort of get the first school, the local school, to sort of up the ante so that we wouldn't have to move?
Yes.
And so I knew it didn't work, and I didn't think it really would.
Mm-hmm.
It felt like, but it felt like good practice.
Mm-hmm.
And so the next interview went well, and then it's okay, let's move to Florida.
Mm-hmm.
So then what happened? Start
Well,
packing.
oh gosh, yeah. I think so. I will say that, and you and I have talked about this before, but we'll let these guys know a little bit. I had moved 6 times,
Mm-hmm.
many times in the last 6 years. So I knew what it involved
Mm-hmm.
when it came to loading up the trucks.
Mm-hmm.
And what a nightmare it could be.
Right.
So I knew that it was my chance to really approach this differently, instead of dread. But I'm not gonna lie, I was very anxious,
Mm-hmm.
and just going, everything's gonna be okay. Everything's gonna be okay. And I literally had to talk myself through,
Mm-hmm.
for the entire shift.
Right.
Because of all of the tumultuous stuff that had happened with me before,
Mm-hmm.
and what it entails to put 4 cats in a car
Right.
and travel miles and miles and miles. That in
Right.
itself was stressful to me.
Yes. Put a house on the market. Find a
Yes,
house on the market.
yes, yes.
Mm-hmm.
So it wasn't just. It was not only the moving aspect, it was also reestablishing all of your comforts.
Mm-hmm.
Things like your house, things like your hairdresser and your
Yes.
nail person, and your dentist,
Mm-hmm.
your primary care doctor, you know, any type of or regular restaurant, that you like to frequent.
Mm-hmm.
Um, you're not just uprooting yourself, you're uprooting all of your habits
Mm-hmm.
and all your comfort zones.
Right.
So I knew that, yes, that would be, for us, definitely accelerated growth in that
Mm-hmm.
regard, because what you're doing is you're upsetting the fruit basket.
Right. A whole new fruit basket.
Yes, with a whole new fruit basket.
Mm-hmm.
Yes, yes.
Yes. Okay. So the next was packing,
Yep.
and at this time I was not working. The previous semester was
It's
done
finished. Mm-hmm.
in California, so I was on summer vacation
Right.
pretty much. And so it was trips to Home Depot, get the boxes and packing. I started with the rooms that we don't really use, that we weren't really using,
Yeah.
and just sort of and so pack things that we don't really use and likely wouldn't need.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, and then we just sort of started packing.
And then we decided to go on a vacation in the middle of the packing.
Yes. Yeah, so we had the planned vacation
Mm-hmm.
to Colorado.
Mm-hmm.
And so we had a house full of boxes, and decided to go take a vacation for a week.
Yeah.
When we came home, we would have 2 days and we'd be on the road.
Yes.
How did that feel?
Oh, it was horribly stressful.
Not a good time to vacation.
Not a good time to vacation, because, and I understand. We were actually at a point where we were at a time crunch. You had to start.
Yes.
Now, I had not even arranged. I had arranged at that point to do some temporary anesthesia stuff in a different city,
Right.
um, which I'm super grateful for, because that actually was very helpful, even though it was, me being away from home. Um, but but yeah, that you had to start right away, so there was a time crunch. We had to get here
Yes.
by that time. So yeah, 2 days with about probably half of the boxes to go, and cats running around like, what the hell's going on with our house?
Yes. Well, I thought it would be fun to take a vacation because we were just living in boxes anyway. The boxes were going to just be sitting there. So why not be where you don't have to look at them? Was how I saw it.
Yeah. Yeah.
We did end up coming home early, didn't we?
Yes.
By a few days.
Yes. Yeah, we did. Because we had to end up changing the moving date.
Why?
I can't remember. It had something to do with the time frame. We moved it up because I think you had to be here for multiple different reasons, like you had meetings or some kind of orientation or something. So I think that was the reason why. We were going to actually come back and load up the truck, remember?
Yes.
After we got down here. We were going to fly
No,
back.
I don't remember that.
Yeah.
I probably thought that was ridiculous. I don't even remember that.
Yeah.
I don't like back and forths and back and forths. All right. I mean, are there any details or specific moments we can share or re-bring up during the packing and moving phase, before the closing up of Virginia phase?
Well, I think kind of the big thing was we focused on teamwork.
Yes.
You would pack. You would ask me, "Is this important?" And if it wasn't, it went to Goodwill or
yes,
something.
I was very good at hucking stuff.
Yes, you were the hooker.
Yes.
All my kitchen gadgets, girls went away.
Yep.
But that's okay. But teamwork, I think, was kind of our biggest focus there. You and I both would take different jobs to do different things. Like you would make a Goodwill run, and then I'd be like, okay, well, I'm going to pack, these clothes or this bathroom stuff. We would actually intentionally work together and try to be as efficient as possible when it came to packing up the house.
Yes.
And we busted our asses in those last 2 days to make it work.
Yes. Yeah, and it worked. One thing that stands out is just staying true to the vision of us moving and just seeing it as happening smoothly.
Right.
Particularly with selling of the house.
Yes.
So that was kind of going to be contingent upon, where we would get to land.
Right.
Whether or not the previous house sold before.
Right.
And so the market was sort of cooling a little bit. It was kind of the tail end of this big boom or whatever. And I remember just going, no, this is it. And a lot of neighbors were throwing out words like, oh, I hope you guys get a bidding war, because that was what was happening for many people. Yeah, over the past 8 months or 12 months.
Yes.
And that was waning a little bit.
Yes.
And so we sort of talked about that and thought, no, that's not really actually what we want.
Right.
We don't want a bidding war. What we want is to sell the house above our asking and to feel abundant about the sale and happy with who's going to enjoy the house.
Yes.
We didn't need any war to happen whatsoever.
Right.
So we could achieve what people would mean by a bidding war, meaning, do well on the sale. Of course, everyone wants people to do well on the sale, just as we all want each other to do well on a purchase. But to ask for a bidding war is sort of an an assumption.
Mm-hmm.
By a bidding war, that assumes then you get to, but you can really just cut that out.
Yeah.
And just go for the, which we ended up, we had, I think, 3 people look at the house.
Yep, only 3.
And the first offer we got was above our asking, and
Yes.
that
was it.
And that's who's living there, so far as we know.
Yep.
And so we kind of cut out the whole drama of it, and still achieved the result.
Right. Well, and also too, I deep down knew that where I had purchased originally before you came to live there, I knew that was going to sell. It was going to sell.
Yes.
It's like I didn't have any doubts whatsoever.
Right.
When you go to purchase a home and you know that it will sell when you go to sell, then it actually makes the entire process easier. Because you have faith. It was on the market, what, a week? Two weeks?
Like that. Yes.
2 weeks, yeah. And that was without a bidding war. So, yeah. And it's not luck, it's expectation.
Right.
And so that went pretty smoothly. It went pretty smoothly. And we were here and in our Airbnb when it actually the closing documents got finished.
Right. So we come back from Colorado, scrambling up, packing the last endless amount of boxes.
Yes.
There are always more boxes. It always feels like, okay, I got this section done of the house, but really it's not. I don't understand how that happens. No, there are always more boxes to be done.
It was like 200 boxes, I think, at least, in addition to all of our furniture.
Yes. Okay, so we go down in 2 cars. The movers have most of our stuff in a big truck.
Yes.
We have a small U-Haul trailer with kind of our essentials. 4 cats in the back of one car, and then the other car
is following.
Yes.
Yeah. And so we start trekking down Interstate 95.
Yeah.
Yeah. We spent the night in one hotel, motel. I wouldn't call it a hotel.
Well, it technically was a hotel. It was a Fleabag hotel.
So that we could have the cats in the room with us.
Right.
And one of them flipped out with all the weird smells.
Yeah, so Lilac flipped out. So we have little individual carriers that we were transporting the cats from the car to the room, like 2 at a time. And so Lilac was the last one to go.
Yeah.
And so she's in her little backpack thing with like a mesh cover that you can see through. And so I remember setting her down in her thing on the parking lot and getting a few things out of the car. There was a stray cat.
Yes.
That came right up to Lilac and was peeking at her through the window.
Say hi.
Yes, and that flipped her out.
Yes.
Flipped her out. And I think that's what ruined it.
Yes.
Is that she saw another cat.
Yes.
Face to face. And so when we bring her into the room, there are all of these smells and just the other cats that she knows and loves there. And she just like did not recognize any of them. She's like, no, like, fuck you. I hate you. Who are you? Just hissing and swiping at everybody.
Yes.
All night.
Yep. We didn't get an ounce of sleep. Oh my gosh.
No.
That was crazy.
Yeah, I made the mistake of letting her out in the room and she just went haywire.
Yeah, poor baby. Oh.
Yeah, it took 3 days. I thought we broke her.
No.
I thought she was done for.
No.
Okay, so we go get through a sleepless night, repack the cats back into the car. Lilac rides in the other car alone.
With me.
Yes. Listening to yoga music.
Yes. Yeah, we tried to be as calm in the car as possible.
And and so we drove. We had walkie-talkies. That was my favorite part.
Yes.
# my idea.
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah, so rather than texting or calling all the time, we could just go, "Oh, hey babe."
Yep, that's what we did.
I'm ready for lunch. Let's go.
Yep. Yeah. That was fun. And then we made it in after about The second day was how many hours of driving? It was
Well, what the whole thing is supposed to be 12. We did 5 and then 7, so it was 7 or 8.
yeah.
But it feels like longer because we had to charge the electric car.
Yes. Yes.
So we had longer stops.
Mm-hmm.
Took forever.
And yeah. Well, whenever you have an electric car, that is exactly the issue is longer.
Mm-hmm.
um, but so we finally pulled into the Airbnb
Mm-hmm.
that we had arranged for to stay there at least 2 months.
I think just a month.
Month.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and it was a 2-bedroom apartment. They were okay with the cats, so that was fine.
Mm-hmm.
Um, she just kind of overlooked the fact that we had we had 2 pair.
Right. And so at this time, we were living in this Airbnb for 4 weeks while the new house was in escrow.
Yes.
And I began teaching, and then you would have a week on work and then a week off or something
Yeah, that
to
was
that
kind of
effect. And you had to drive 2 or 3 hours away.
yeah, 3-hour drive.
Mm-hmm.
Yes. And then yeah, we were starting the so the house we actually ended up this is the second house, not the first. The first house, we went all the way up to purchasing it, and the Virginia bank that we used decided to pull out the
Mm-hmm.
day before
Yes.
because it's a Florida house, and it was,
It was a regional bank.
regional bank,
And
and
so, for whatever reasons, they were not happy
yes,
and couldn't tell us any sooner.
yes, exactly. So we ended up just losing a pretty good amount of money on that, which was fine. It was a learning lesson. And I think that's pretty much what the entire transition has been with us
Right.
moving to Florida. We've learned a lot of lessons about what couples go through, the most difficult stuff that couples can go through.
Mm-hmm.
So, number one is a move.
Right.
Number two would be purchasing a house.
Mm-hmm.
Number three, starting a new job or career, either one.
Sure.
And then, of course, you have the 2 other ones, the 2 Ds, the divorce and death,
Mm.
which we're not experiencing at this point, which is good.
Mm-hmm.
That's one less thing, 2 less things.
Right.
So, but yeah, all of these challenges that we've been through over the last few months just culminated with us deeper growing in our own alignment.
Mm-hmm.
And also in our focus for the yin yang combo. So
Yes.
our union,
Mm-hmm.
which of course it culminated with we got married a few weeks ago.
Right.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So I feel like we're not telling the story like super epically. Because most of it's done. It's like, oh yeah, we did that.
We did
oh,
that.
Yeah.
We did that.
And so yeah, I almost wish we had some people here or that this was live, because I feel like there may be questions that we could answer or like recall.
Uh-huh.
Because from my seat now, it feels like, oh yeah, we just kind of had to tune in and stay true to what we wanted and take it day
Right.
by day, and that was it. Like,
Right.
I don't really remember any huge drama moments.
Oh, I remember being absolutely miserable and bitching and complaining and
You do?
yes.
When?
I did
I'll
it.
talk about that.
I bitched and complained.
When?
Well, let's see. A couple of times I would say. Once we got into this house after
Well, that's we're talking about
Yeah.
just the move.
yes, just the move. Getting into the Airbnb. And then, I said to you, we're going to have to get a storage unit
Mm-hmm.
to store our little extra crap in.
Yeah.
There were always little things. It was always something, little something, little something.
Mm-hmm.
Um, need to clean the Airbnb. We need to do this or do. It's always there was
Yes. There
always
were
seems
things.
like nitpicky things.
Yeah, there were things with it too. There was something about the air filter
Oh, and
or
it
their
kept
AC
beeping.
thing kept beeping. Yeah.
Yes, and you fixed it.
Yes.
You figured out how to fix it.
Yes. There were all of these little moments. The cats didn't really like it. It was a small space for them.
Yes.
Keeping the cats off of the furniture because it's not our furniture.
Yes. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, I don't know.
Yeah.
And then we left.
And then we ended up having to go to a second unit in that complex because she had already rented it out. Let us stay until the very last moment where she was renting out the Airbnb.
Yeah, so we couldn't extend, and we needed somewhere to stay because at this point the house fell through.
Yep, and then we had started on the new search for this house.
Right.
And then we knew that it wouldn't close until October.
Yes.
So we had to find a place to stay.
And get a lease, a
Yep.
full lease.
Yep. So we ended up having to purchase a full lease that was 7 months long term, which was very frustrating for me. I was like, "Arr! And why do we have to have a deposit?
Right.
Because you already know us."
Mm-hmm.
There was a lot of frustrating moments in that regard.
Yes.
And then, of course, when we go in there,
Oh, it smelled like weed?
way like weed,
Yes.
which I don't, hey, whatever you want to do to do, as
To
you're
yin out.
to yin out, I'm fine with that. But if you're going to smoke in an apartment, open up the damn windows or something. I don't
Mm-hmm.
know. It was like they baked in there for months. So
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I was very disappointed in that and I felt like we kind of had to do it because we didn't really have much time.
We had to do what?
We had to go into that apartment.
Well, it was
I felt
an
like
easy. It was a very easy solution. It was pretty much next door.
I mean, I did it while you were at work. I moved all of our shit over there. I was like, had suitcases down
Mm-hmm.
the sidewalk and
Right.
going into the apartment. I mean, that's all you had to do,
Mm-hmm.
was literally go from one end of the complex to the other.
Yes.
So it was a blessing, but it really irritated me. A lot of the details about it irritated me.
Yes.
I was
Yes.
actually I had pretty much had it at that point, so the irritation level I got raw.
Right. So at this point, we rented furniture.
Yes.
It was an unfurnished apartment,
Yes.
and it didn't make sense to have the movers bring our stuff because
We'd
we
have to
would
move
just move it
again.
again at the house. So
They were in storage, yes.
yes, and we weren't keen on, patio furniture living inside for
Yeah.
who knows how long.
Yes.
So we rented some furniture.
Yes. Yep. And that's pretty much what. Yeah, and that was a minimum of 3 months, which I thought and it was expensive too. It's like what?
Right. So we would only need it
$700 a
for
month.
we needed it for 4 or 6 weeks, but they had a 12-week minimum
Mm-hmm.
rental agreement.
Another irritation for me. It's like,
Mm-hmm.
yes,
Yeah, just shelling out.
I know. Yeah.
Everybody have a piece.
Everybody have some money. Here
Yeah.
you go. It was like vomiting money constantly.
Right.
Yeah, moves actually are expensive. I mean, the moving truck alone, and then the storage. The storage they charged us $900 a month to hold our furniture.
Oh, for the movers.
Yes. So you're talking 3 months there.
Yes.
That's like, almost $3,000.
Right.
And then it was $10,000 to essentially take a 3-bedroom house. moved
The apartment. Oh, oh,
from Virginia to Florida.
oh. Mm-hmm.
So, you're talking 10 to 15 grand
Right.
to move a pretty far distance.
Mm-hmm.
And that was not even like, that's the ones that will actually take your furniture in and put your bed back together.
Yes.
This is still not white glove,
Mm-hmm.
where they unpack all your boxes and all that stuff, which you can purchase stuff like this.
Mm-hmm.
This was middle of the road type of movers.
Mm-hmm.
Not the cheapest, like where you do the boxes or the cubes, and you do it yourself. This is movers that actually load up on a truck, and then they also unload the truck.
Yes.
So,
In the rain.
in the rain. Oh, hurricane. Yes. Yeah, that was pretty much the culmination. And yeah, I was just about ready to have a nervous breakdown when the furniture showed up.
Yes. Yeah,
Here.
we still have mud tire tracks on
Yes.
our lawn.
Yes. Where they ripped up our lawn, our brand new house.
Mm-hmm.
And we were like, oh, we have such a pretty lawn. Squish. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it was a pretty negative experience, I must say, from my end.
Hmm.
I can, yes, but I do have the ability to see the awesomeness of it, and that we grew through it and we
Yes.
focused on it. That's what I'm getting at. Is, yes, I'm trying to explain to folks, yes, it was not all airy fairy rainbows and unicorns. It was definitely tough. It was definitely took some patience,
Mm-hmm.
love, appreciation,
Mm-hmm.
and teamwork. Thank goodness that
Mm-hmm.
you and I signed up for teamwork right from the get go.
Yes.
So that's pretty much I think what I wanted to let our viewers know is, yes, it's hard as shit.
Right. So, what are some things we could have done differently? And
Mm-hmm.
using our understanding of yin and yang
Yes.
expressions as a vocabulary for what those changes could be. Just up until the move. Just the moving aspect.
Yeah. So, well, I mean, I believe actually, just in the regard of you taking yang position, and there were multiple times when I think my self-talk was wanting to yang.
Mm-hmm.
So that's where the discomfort was coming from, for the most part. This was frustration. This was that pissed me off, or I hated that nitpick, whatever.
Mm-hmm.
That could have been better. That is coming from a self-image, an old self-image, what I would call a gremlin,
Mm-hmm.
where the gremlin was trying to yang and trying to control things,
Mm-hmm.
and it felt bad. It just downright felt bad. So there are two ways of looking at that. Number one, this is old conditioning.
Mm-hmm.
And yes, the way I used to do it, it was more efficient and a little, and it was very driven. It was like, I got to get this done.
So
bam, 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 bam.
So what was more
like,
efficient?
What
would be more efficient?
Like a little less loosey goosey on, like, I would have probably canceled the vacation in the middle of that.
Mm-hmm.
I would have been like, nope, we can't do it.
And what would have happened in those days?
More packing, but less stressed packing. It would have been more of a steady instead of a frenzy kind of. I felt like those last couple of days were frenzy. At least they were in my head.
Mm-hmm.
There was a time. There was a huge time crunch at that point.
Mm-hmm. So what else felt loosey goosey?
Um, Figuring out once we got to Florida where what we were going to do stay wise, like where we were going to stay and Airbnb it. And the Airbnb was not a tight thing. It was not a sure thing. We had it, we knew up until a certain point, but we didn't know what was going to happen after that. That
Well,
to me was a little loosey goosey.
well, the expectation was we're in escrow and this is the closing date, and we had the Airbnb past the closing date, the original close date.
Oh, the original, yes, for the first
Yeah,
house, yes.
we didn't come down here knowing that we were going to lose
Yes.
an escrow.
Right. Right.
So how is it loosey goosey at the time?
Well, I guess it's not now that I look back on it. Because, yes, you're right. The expectation was we were going to be out of the Airbnb in
3
time.
weeks. So we got it for 4.
Yep.
Yes.
We would have had plenty of time.
Mm-hmm.
See, isn't that funny how when I look back on it, I'm like, that was not well planned. But the bank stuff was not well planned either. But they really kind of pulled the...
Right. I mean, I'm glad we're not in that house.
Yes, I am too. Oh my gosh. That house was really old and had a lot of work to be done to it.
Mm-hmm.
More so than this house. So,
yes.
Yeah. So, yes, I'm very thankful. So, yes, it did work out perfectly.
Mm-hmm.
And even if you find yourself in a situation where you don't know where you're going to live, you don't know what house you're going to close on,
Mm-hmm.
you don't know if you're going to get this job. Like, there was actually a question. I was like, why are these people not calling me back?
Mm-hmm.
Remember I was talking about that.
Yes.
Any time that you have that self-doubt cooking, you're not looking at it in the most effective creatorship way.
Mm-hmm.
You're not you are falling victim to your life instead of creating your life. And that's looking back on it, that's what I was doing. I was allowing circumstances to dictate my alignment.
Mm.
And it kept literally honing in on where I needed to look. Get those facet. Look in this way, look in this way, look in this way. And it was all about turning in and finding my own alignment.
Mm.
In the middle of the
yes.
Freak out.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean the freak out really, as I see it, is clinging to potentials.
Yes.
A whole bunch of potential outcomes and clinging to one or several.
Yes. Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's
Whereas
exactly what I was doing.
It was very, okay, we're clear to here. We're not going to starve. We're not going to be out in the rain. There's nothing to be done about what needs to be done in 2 weeks.
Right.
That's just the time frame I made up. So it was uncomfortable. To me, it felt like driving through fog, like through foggy weather conditions.
Yes.
And it is uncomfortable, but there's nothing else to do but
keep driving.
But this 10 feet.
Yes. And when it comes to how you and I work dynamically,
mm-hmm.
when I have self-doubt that's cooking, and then I am reflecting back, I see you in no self-doubt, it helps me to recheck in and say, well, why am I feeling self-doubt?
Mm.
So that's the dynamics that I feel like a healthy relationship should be in.
Right.
I don't expect you to drag us through the fog.
Right.
I expect you and I to maintain our alignments through the fog, knowing that we will both come out on the other side of the fog.
Mm-hmm. Well, another thing that's interesting to fine tune is, so you mentioned that, prior to, you would have wanted to take control
Yep.
and do it and execute in a certain way.
And it would have been very well controlled and very predictable.
Right. And so there is, to discern which differences being, okay, how you would have done it in this controlled way, and the yang expressions that I was taking.
Yes.
So the difference is there. It's to really, one by one, to be thorough, examine, okay, is this an area where Richard needs some improvement, or is this my own control?
Right.
And I don't think it's a sweeping one or the other.
Right.
But it's a case by case, moment by moment.
Yes.
And that is pretty tedious when there are so many moving parts,
right,
as there were.
Yes. Yes. And that's the reason why because I'm such an Enneagram 9, and I do prefer inner peace, and I do prefer harmony on the external. And because I prefer to be a yin, which is a support and not a hindrance, I felt like that tapping into my own faith and faith in us was the more efficient route, and then just downright ignore all of my I want to control, I want to fix it, I want this to happen this way.
Yeah, it was pretty easy for me to let go of attachment to outcomes. I just had already scrambled in the cities before, particularly right after graduating from school, when it's all of this, and I certainly fell into the trap of that. And it's a time in life where I don't have $3,000 to anything, to figure out anything. It's very flying by the seat of my pants.
Right.
And so after having had those experiences and knowing that it always does work out, and that the big disasters in retrospect don't seem like disasters, I just sort of knew that. And that helped me to be able to take this scenario just bit by bit by bit.
Yeah. But very interesting, because that is the healthiest yang, is one that has faith. Not out of experience, but just straight up faith. Even though you did have the experience of flying by the seat of your pants, most people don't want to do that.
Right.
Unless maybe they're
adrenaline
junkies. Yes. So, but for the most part, when it comes to finances and houses and cars and your family, like, what if we'd have had kids? Holy shit.
Well, we didn't.
Yeah, I know.
So
well, we had 4 furry ones.
Whatever. Yeah.
Yes. But
well, that's sort of a stoic principle of,
right.
No, that's not what it is, so who cares?
Right.
Yes, it would be very different if we had children to contend with. It would have been a different scenario.
Yes.
Entirely.
Yeah, for sure.
But we don't, so who cares?
Right. Well,
but I mean, unless as an exercise for this, we do want to go, oh, how would we do that if we did have kids? What would we do different? Yeah, and that's a great question.
Because I'm sure we'll have some viewers that will see that. We'll see that. How would you handle that if you had kids?
I would not have done the Airbnb scenario.
Yeah.
Would not have done the Airbnb scenario. I would have either rented for a full year.
Yes.
An apartment. Just enjoyed the finding a house.
Yes.
Or else stay in Virginia until, don't move until after the close.
Right.
And so that it didn't quite work out that way. We kind of had to be out of the house. But, we could have rented from the new owner. Or just rented in town somewhere. So it would be a bit more taking time and slower moves and more precise moves to not uproot that's just too many variables with kids.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I'd say even with one kid, I would have done that.
Yeah.
That being
Mm-hmm.
wait until the new house is closed before moving.
Right. Yeah, and I actually, in retrospect, for us, I would probably say, yeah, the Airbnb was kind of the wobble factor.
Mm-hmm.
And it was most expensive too. It was actually the most expensive proposition. I mean, it was like $4,000 or $5,000 we paid just for the 4 weeks, which I thought
Right.
was pretty high. Yeah.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
I think the most important thing to successfully move is to stay clear on the vision, on the heading, the direction,
Yes.
and not to wobble
Yes.
the direction. Because I'd say almost certainly there will be variables and new things that pop up.
Yes.
Maybe not as many as we got to enjoy. However, staying the course
Mm-hmm.
and just keeping the vision of, nope, this is what we were doing. We are moving here and we're going to enjoy a house here.
Yes.
That kind of prevents from getting swept up in every little, certainly for the yang, I'd say
Yes.
that is very important.
Well, and truthfully, a yin just needs to access surrendering to faith.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, faith in that it all works out no matter what the outcome.
Mm-hmm.
I think it has to do with, it's a little bit of flying by the seat of your pants, but not adrenaline, because that's
Right.
if you're acting on adrenaline, that's fear based.
Mm.
That's literally epinephrine, adrenaline running through your system. Your heart's going fast. Your blood pressure's up. You're causing disease. You're causing fatigue.
Mm-hmm.
You're causing burnout if you're running on that kind of flying by the seat of your pants. No, it needs to be more about everything's working out. And it has to be solid, and it has to have that solid faith substance to it. Not, wee, I'm just riding the waves. Wee. It can't be that.
How come?
I don't feel like that. There comes a time when you have to get off the roller coaster because you're going to get nauseated after you keep going and going and going. Nobody can ride a roller coaster for 18 hours straight. Is
that what the world record is?
I don't know.
Did they used to do that the longest amount of times?
Yes.
Just some dude trying to get free roller coaster rides. I'm going for a record. Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That's funny. Oh, that's cute. But yeah, so that's what I feel like that's what I kept tapping into. That was keeping me from pulling my hair out.
All right. So stay true and surrender.
Yeah.
All right.
Mm-hmm.
So let's have a little bit of fun for next week.
Okay.
Let's, before we record, watch My Cousin Vinny.
Okay.
And we will each make a list of the top yin yang success moments and yin yang failure moments.
Okay.
So just watching this film.
Yes.
And just noting the yin expressions and the yang expressions.
Uh-huh.
And then everybody listening before next week or before you watch the next episode, do this list yourself. Put on My Cousin Vinny, stream it however you'd like, and just, you could be columns or just any bullet points that stand out to you about excellent yang moments, excellent yin moments. Mm-hmm. It could be a drinking game even too.
Oh yeah.
We'll stay academic with it. We'll just have a list game going, but it could be a drinking game.
Yeah.
And then so next week we'll kind of unpack them, and then those of you that watched and have your list, you can kind of compare and see if we came up with some of the same moments.
Yeah.
Sweet.
That sounds fun.
All right. This has been brought to you by Shared Heart Journeys. SharedHeartJourneys.world.
Yep.
click, like, subscribe.
Mhm.
Love us, work with us.
Share us.
Yes. And we'll see you next week.
Bye, guys.
Bye.